we're doing math right now, and you were trying to figure out how good the new weapon is going to be. And the new weapon, if you didn't know, is the Song of Broken Pines that they're going to be releasing full information on very soon. But we have some of the information, of course, from the beta servers and test servers, etc., that people have gotten. And this information is, again, not fully up to date. The reason you know that this information might be slightly incorrect is because of how the Pale Flame set works. If you didn't know this on launch of the Pale Flame set in the beta test server actually had different information given. Instead of having 2 stacks, it used to have 3 stacks. And this, no one actually knew that there was a change being made to the Pale Flame set prior to its being released. So just know that all the information I'm about to give you today is subjective information that might not be fully confirmed because of how the stat ratios on things will work going forward. There might be a change on the weapon prior to its release. We don't know. But if it is the same as it was on the beta servers, this information is going to be just mathematically correct. We're going to talk about Eula a little bit and talk about the new weapon very briefly. So the new weapon, if you did not know, is a new Claymore that's going to be coming to the game that they have already talked about and said it will be coming in the next 8 days or so when the Zhongli banner leaves. If it's on your server, 7 days, sorry. And the new Claymore is supposedly has the highest base attack in the entire game. It totals out on the beta servers. It said it was at quote unquote 741 base attack. Don't know if it's true again, but that's what they said, and that's what all the information's given us so far. That's what MiHoYo's kind of given us so far, and that's what we're going with, okay? If it's true, it's the highest base attack weapon in the entire game. And for the information that we had from people that were looking it up, the information that people did have, this weapon, there it is the Song of Broken Pines, okay? It starts at 49 base attack and scales all the way up to 741 on here. Because what they did was they lowered the amount of physical damage that you got from this weapon, and they actually improved the amount of base attack. And they do this for all weapons. What they do to play around with weapons for power creeping so that you don't like have overpowered weapons or overtuned weapons is they change the way stats work. So the first example of this in the game was the Primordial Jade Cutter, where they lowered the base attack of the weapon to the lowest value of base attack possible in the entire game for a 5-star weapon, putting it down to starting at 44 and actually caps out at 542. So it's the lowest possible 5-star weapon, but it has the highest crit chance stat on any 5-star weapon in the game at 44 crit chance. So they overtuned the main stat of the weapon and lowered the base attack of the weapon. So kind of a cool way of doing things to balance weapons. So it's really good. So now I know a lot of you already know this, but I wanted to get into this and talk about the balancing that they're doing with this might actually change the way for the certain characters going to work in the game based on things that you might not have seen. For this new weapon, because the base attack is so high, base attack is the most valuable stat that you can actually acquire on any stat that you can actually get for overall damage. And the reason it's so powerful is because base attack is extremely heavily affected by attack percentage gains. It also affects your crit chance and crit damage values that you're going to get when you get those attack damage gains, etc. And because you're getting larger attack percentage gains when you have a higher base attack, you can get these really big Mad Lad hits. So the first thing I wanted to go over was the high base attack on the weapon. The second thing is the weapon is rumored to have a 12% attack speed increase as well as a 20% attack bump when you max it out and a 16% flat attack increase just as a flat bonus. Now, the weapon I wanted to compare this to, which is the most interesting, is the Wolf's Gravestone. Now, the Wallet Gravestone, if you're not aware, is a weapon with actually a very low amount of base attack. The Wallet Gravestone actually only has, I believe, 608 base attack at maximum. You can see at level 8, it's 563, but it caps out at 608 and has a 49% total attack percent bump here with a flat additional modifier of 20% attack that you gain on this. Now, what we were doing to figure out is we actually wanted to look at a really interesting character that was not Eula. And we wanted to see if the weapon was extremely good. So the number one character to look at for this was going to be Diluc. And I was looking at this weapon and I was trying to figure out what the differences on Diluc are for the new weapon versus using a Wolf Gravestone on Diluc. And I actually was doing the math on the total amount of damage that you would actually gain on everything. So you know, what I did to find out the math on this is I took the total amount of base attack from the new weapon, as well as I ignored completely the physical stat bonus that you get on this weapon. And I actually took the Wolf Gravestone, and I took the attack percentage gain from the Wolf Gravestone, as well as the base attack from the Wolf Gravestone, in this equation. And then I also took the 16% attack that you would gain right here on this weapon from the base flat amount that you just get on the weapon, and the 20% that you get from this weapon. Now, the thing I ignored on purpose was the proc that you get from the Wolf Gravestone and the proc that you get from the new weapon. And the reason I ignored these two things is because I can compare them separately later in this equation to talk about why they matter in different ways. What I did was I wanted to figure out how much attack percentage gain you would get on a character, and I tried to figure out everything. So I started with the Pale Flame set. You can do a witch set, whatever set you want. It actually doesn't matter what set you use. I just decided to use that my Pale Flame set right now as a base value. And what I do is I try to figure out the total amount of flat attack that I have, and I add all the flat attack values up. I then find then I can actually figure out the total percentage of attack that I'm gaining on everything, etc. I just figure out all the flat attack values. So I added all the flat attack values up. I added all the attack percentages up and saw what I would actually gain in my stats. And then I compared that to the total amount of base attack that I had on my character, and I made sure I didn't have an attack percentage weapon on, so I could figure everything out to figure out exactly what I would gain on the total amount of attack percentage I had from my artifacts. Now, the amount of attack percentage I had was very important because I wanted to know exactly what I would gain. Now, the amount of attack percentage I got from artifacts was about 108.6% attack percentage from all the artifacts combined, including the sands percentage and all the other attack percentages included. And then there's no other attack percentage gains that you get on this besides the ones I believe. Does Fischl scale an attack? Besides the attack percentage gain you get from Fischl's level up, which is another 24%. Now, I did include this because I was kind of curious to see how the additional 24% would play into things, to see how close you would get. And I did add that in, and I left that in this equation. And the reason I wanted to, because you could, main reason for me is I wanted to see with a higher percentage value, closer to about 100% attack percentage, which is what I have on most of my artifact sets. If I go into like a lot of my artifact sets, that's usually the case. And on this artifact set, which is really weird, I just have a lot of flat attack. If you can see here, I just have a lot of flat attack values on this. So I figured to balance that out, to see the more attack percentage values, I just added it was better to use than official. All right, for this explanation, I am also not going to add in Diluc's base attack value. And the reason I'm not going to add in his overall base attack value with no weapon, if you wanted to know the amount of damage that you get from the Wolf set, when you look at the total amount of attack percentage gain, is about 170 total attack more that you would get from the overall damage from a Wolf set. Also, then you could argue that your Fizz main stat would be different, because then on your white hits while you're doing your EQ auto is gonna, the E auto could potentially be 20% higher while you're doing your auto attacks prior to your ultimate ability, which means that could potentially be higher too. So you see how much crazy math could actually come in here when you're not factoring that 170 attack versus the 20% Fizz damage and trying to add in those values. So that is just too much math for this video, and I excluded that on purpose. What I was trying to figure out was what you would really gain from a Wolf Gravestone versus the new Claymore. So the Wolf Gravestone has a 608 base attack, and the new Claymore has 741 attack. The attack percentage gain on the Wolf Gravestone is 69.6%. You get that from the 20% that you get from the passive on the weapon, and the 49.6% from the level 90 weapon. The attack gain that you would get from that is 423 total attack. Now, if you compare that to the new Claymore, it starts at 741 attack, and it gets a 16% attack, which means you get a gain of 118 attack. Now, from the artifact gain of 108%, which is artifact and basically levels at this point, I guess you could say, is 108% attack, which means that you would get a total of 660 attack from those artifact gains from the character. And for the new Claymore is going to be 804. Now, when I added all the attack values up for just the weapon values that we got, that came out to be 1691 attack on the Wolf Gravestone and 1663 attack on the new Claymore, which means there's only a 28 attack difference between the new Claymore and the Wolf Gravestone. So if you ended up having about 108% attack on your Diluc, on the overall attack, you would only be losing 28 attack. Now remember, I didn't add in the attack percentage buff that you get from the Wolf Gravestone proc, and I also did not add in the attack speed as well as the attack percentage buff that you get from the new weapon. So if we go back to the Wolf Gravestone has an attack percentage proc. Whenever you get a character below 30% HP and attack them, you will get a 40% attack buff for 12 seconds. Now, I have found after using the Wolf Gravestone for quite some time that the attack percentage buff that you get from hitting somebody below that threshold is actually kind of, few and far between. And the fact that this also has a 30-second cooldown means that you really can't utilize this proc effectively a large amount of the time. Now, if you look at the new Claymore, however, the new Claymore is going to have a similar duration on here with a 12-second duration, but it does something different where it's based on the amount of attacks that you deal. Now, when we were looking into this and trying to figure out how long it would take, what we did was we took a character like Beidou and figured out exactly how long it would take to get 4 attacks in to figure out exactly where it would lie. And it takes about 3 to 4 seconds. It could take a little bit less because of how the multiple attack hits work for Eula and for Diluc and trying to get other things in, but it's only for normal and charge attacks. So I would assume it would be about 3 or 4 seconds to get all the attacks in for Diluc. We'd have to test. Going into that, if it was 3 or 4 seconds, that means after that 3 or 4 second window where you've auto attacked a few times, now you get yourself a 12% attack speed increase as well as a 20% attack bump. Now for Diluc, that sounds really good because after you do your E auto attack, E auto attack, E auto attack combo, you've done 3 auto attacks in that combination. Then you can do an ultimate or use your Q, a last auto attack and then your ultimate and get the 20% attack buff on your ultimate, and then switch back on your Diluc, start autoing. And because you get a 12% attack speed increase, you're going to be hitting a lot faster, which means your damage could actually increase by overall 12% because that's an attack speed increase because you're only using normal attacks. Oh, if we're looking at a character like Diluc for the best in slot weapon at Refine 1, the Song of Broken Pines definitely gives the Wolf Gravestone a run for its money and potentially could be the best in slot Refine 1 weapon for Diluc. Now, the other thing I want to add in here is that when you use a Bennett buff and you add in the Bennett buff is not going to boost base off of the Diluc attack, so it's not going to boost it even higher if your Diluc has the new Claymore. It's actually only going to be boosting it based off Bennett's attack because the way that Bennett's buff is, of course, it'll only be based off of Bennett's attack, and the new weapon on Diluc won't have a factor into that. If you wanted to factor in, say, a Noblesse set or other attack percentage gains, those things would, of course, factor in for the new weapon, and that can potentially give you more. So if you wanted to use a Millis set character with a Diluc, and you want to use a Noblesse set character with Diluc, those attack percentage gains would affect the new Claymore, and they would give it more attack, and definitely put it above the Wolf Gravestone in that right. So if you're a player that uses the Millis set as well as the Noblesse set with so your supporting characters for Diluc, then yes, you will get more damage. All right, guys, well, that's going to be doing it for this video. My name's Sekapoko. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think about this new Claymore and the idea behind this new Claymore for Diluc in the comment section down below. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.